Since we have moved to Nashville, Lisa has gone from what I call her internal oven to saying almost every night, Jeff, I'm cold again. And she's not kidding. Maybe it's the Nashville weather. Maybe her hormones are finally regulating again. But the moment the Cozy Earth double bubble cuddle blanket arrived, say that 3 times fast, all that changed. Every evening that she and Hayden are home, they curl up under that blanket in front of the fireplace with the Christmas lights glowing. Sometimes they're doing devotions. Other times they're watching a show or just enjoying time as family. But I'll be honest, when Lisa calls something her go-to for warmth and comfort, that means something. Number one, I'm not used to her trying to get warm. She's normally sweating, which is why she likes the Cozy Earth pajamas as well. But Cozy Earth products, they have the viscose, crafted with viscose from bamboo, designed to create a calm, a sanctuary at home. Their bedding keeps you at the right temperature. Their fabric is incredibly soft. Their products are just built with a 10-year warranty and 100-night sleep trial. So if you're looking for the perfect Christmas gift this Christmas, something that wraps the people you love a real comfort, their bamboo sheet is set as an easy win. Their double bubble blanket will keep you warm and snuggly in front of the fire, or even if you don't have a fire. But go to CozyEarth.com and use the code ECHOES for an exclusive discount, 40% off. Again, that's discount only for Echoes Through Eternity listeners. And if you get a post-purchase survey, just say you heard about Cozy Earth from this podcast. It helps keep bringing partners like this to you. Again, Cozy Earth wraps the ones you love in luxury. Last episode, we talked about something uncomfortable but necessary. Selfies in front of the cross. The danger of personality-driven church planting. What happens when the messenger becomes more visible than the message. Today, we want to build straight on that platform because right now, something real is stirring in the church. It's not hype. To begin with, there were people that kind of looked cautiously at it, but we're 3 years into this, and Barta and Kerry Newhoff and many others in the church planting space, exponential, it's beginning to be noticed, and that is that the next generation is surging, especially young men. The Gen Z. And the interesting thing is they're bringing millennials with them. That's stirring you to church. It's not nostalgia. It's not just a social media trend. It's something measurable. It's something spiritual, something with both promise and peril. Gen Z is coming back to church. And the question isn't whether revival is stirring. The question is whether we will steward it well. With Jesus at the center, not us, not trends, not algorithms.
Marcus Aurelius said, "What we do in life echoes through eternity." What is your life echoing through eternity? Welcome to Echoes Through Eternity with Dr. Jeffrey Skinner. Our mission is to inspire, engage, and encourage leaders from across the globe to plant missional churches and be servant leaders. So join us and hear the stories of servant leaders reverberating lives as God echoes them through eternity. Brought to you by Missional Church Planting and Leadership Development and Dynamic Church Planting International.
Welcome into Echoes Through Eternity. I'm your host, Dr. Jeffrey D. Skinner. This is a space where we slow down, where we listen for what God is saying beneath the noise, and where we ask one simple question together. What is God echoing through your life today? Well, last episode, we talked about something uncomfortable but necessary. Selfies in front of the cross. The danger of personality-driven church planting. What happens when the messenger becomes more visible than the message. Today, we want to build straight on that platform because right now, something real is stirring in the church. It's not hype. To begin with, there were people that kind of looked cautiously at it, but we're 3 years into this, and Barta and Kerry Newhoff and many others in the church planting space, exponential, it's beginning to be noticed, and that is that the next generation is surging, especially young men, the Gen Z. And the interesting thing is they're bringing millennials with them. So anyway, we want to kind of talk about that. That's starting to get to church today. It's not nostalgia. It's not just a social media trend. It's something measurable. It's something spiritual, something with both promise and peril. Gen Z is coming back to church. And the question isn't whether revival is stirring. The question is whether we will steward it well. With Jesus at the center, not us, not trends, not algorithms. If the church institution, when I talk about the church, big C, a lot of times that's what I'm talking about, is that the institution of the church. And look, I'm not against institutions. I just think that they function in a different way than what us, we have to function as a church plant. And so, if we allow the institutional bureaucracy, for lack of a better word, to co-opt this movement, then we're going to start trying to shape Gen Z and their spiritual identities in our image. And that is the same problem that happened, truthfully, with the church leadership back in Jesus' day, when he called them a pit of vipers and strong language of vipers for those people. That was hearkening them back to the desert when they were, out there wandering around, and they were being killed and poisoned by those vipers as a punishment from God, at least from biblical standpoint there, for their lack of obedience. And so when Jesus used that language with them, it was not complimentary language, obviously, but it was strong language. It was essentially a curse word, and calling them bad names in that era there. And so we don't want that institution bureaucracy to start shaping them in our image, but we want to be sure that we keep Jesus at that image. So first thing is, the surge is real. In early January, Kerry Newhoff released his 7 disruptive church trends that will rule in 2026. It's already required reading for pastors, planters, and leaders. The data is startling. And what he did was he just basically took Barna's research and did an analysis on it. Gen Z now leads in church attendance, averaging 1.9 weekends per week, the highest of any generation. Those of us who have been part of a church for a long time, and that's what I'm talking about, trying to shape them in the image of us, in the image of the church. They're attending 1.9 times per month. When we were growing up, we were there every time the church doors open. We were there Sunday morning, Sunday night, Wednesday night, and everything in between. Right now at Trevecca Community Church, we're in the middle of a musical. We're there 3 or 4 times a week trying to prepare for that musical that will happen in March. And which is, if you're listening in the Nashville area, you definitely want to hear that. It's coming along really well. It's called The Deliverer, and it was written by our pastor, Dr. Shauna Songer Gaines. She adapted it from her dissertation, which talks about the pastor as midwife. In other words, but what we're giving birth to is spiritual identity, helping facilitate that birth and help it come along. That was a great analogy for the church. Anyway, I digress here, but if you're in the Nashville area, that'll be happening in March. Keep an eye out for that. But the point here, 0.9 times a month is low. Okay, you're only there half the time the doors are open. Remember, 1, that's an average. There's some that are higher, some that are lower. And 2, it beats out other generations. It marginally beats millennials. It's meaningfully higher than Gen X or boomers. And in 2021, they were barely attending once a month. So in 4 short years, that nearly doubled. Other signs back it up. Bible sales up 41.6% since 2022. Spiritual app downloads up 79.5% since 2019. Christian music streams up 50%. Americans saying they have a personal commitment to Jesus, that's still meaningful, and it rose 12% between 2022 and 2025. That's movement. That's not decline. But Carrie Name's attention, like Christianity as a whole, is still shrinking. In 2000, 74% of Americans said faith was central to their lives. By 2025, that dropped to 54%, almost half of U.S. adults. 48% now qualify as non-practicing Christians. Only 24% actively pursue their faith. So we're living in a paradox. The church is shrinking. Revival is stirring at the same time. Gen Z is in revival and retreat simultaneously. The mission isn't yet accomplished. There's much to do. But this surge among the young is a God-given window. I want to talk about now from despair to desperation. One line from the report has stayed with me. Luke Lefevre, a Gen Z preacher who's spoken at Saddleback, led gospel responses at raves and high schools, and founded Consecrate, put words to what many of us have sensed. He says Gen Z has gone from despair to desperation, and that's driven many to Jesus. That's it. They grew up exposed to everything early, unlimited freedom, endless affirmation, curated identity, digital belonging. It promised everything and delivered emptiness. Anxiety rising, loneliness epidemic, AI companionship replacing real relationships. Truth feeling unstable. Culture's offers collapsed under their own weight. Gen Z moved from passive despair to active desperation. They're not looking for an echo of the culture. They're looking for an alternative. To put it in religious terms, they're looking for holiness. And I don't mean, you and I have discussed this before, holiness is not a term of morality. It's not a term of ethics. It's a description that was used for God himself. It meant completely other, set apart from everything else. Yes, that means sanctification means set apart as well. But holiness goes beyond set apart. Holiness means there is no description for that particular thing. And so that's why we struggle sometimes in the church to put into words and language these movements of God because they are holy. And so Lefevre and his friend Daniel McCloud described this in raw terms on Carrie's podcast. They've preached over 1,000 high schoolers at raves. They've seen hundreds respond to the gospel boldly. Gen Z evangelizes directly, one-on-one, online, no filters. They share because they've tasted the emptiness and found Jesus satisfies. They don't want fog machines and celebrity pastors. They want something solid. Again, holiness, a faith that costs something, and that hunger is God-breathed. But hunger alone does not produce disciples. So let's talk about revival as God's work. Stewarding it is ours. Here's where the church must be careful. Carrie says it's clear. Revival is God's action, not something we manufacture. It's not something we brand. It's not something we scale. We cannot control revival. If we're controlling revival, it is man-made and it will not last. The Bible is clear. The flowers fade, but the word stands forever. But you can position yourself to receive it. History teaches us a sobering lesson. Every genuine moment of God faces the same temptation. Replace Jesus with the experience of Jesus. Protect the method instead of the mission. Confuse momentum with maturity. Revival without discipleship collapses. Emotion without formation fades. excitement without multiplication becomes spiritual entertainment. We've seen all of these forms over the last 50, 60 years. We've seen them throughout history, truthfully. We steward this surge by keeping Jesus central. It's not atmosphere. It's not our platforms. It's not our algorithms. We're not going to make this better by tweaking it with AI, which brings us to our fourth segment here, which is the algorithm problem. One of the most prophetic warnings in a report is that discipleship is now largely controlled by algorithm. Most people aren't being discipled by their pastor. They're being discipled by TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, podcast feeds. Believers average 49 hours per week consuming algorithm-driven content. Then we expect a 30-minute sermon to reform them. That's not realistic. That's math. Algorithms don't disciple toward Christ-likeness. They disciple towards outrage, tribalism, fear, identity politics, and performance. When churches chase algorithms instead of anchoring in Jesus, something tragic happens. Carey says plainly, when you become indistinguishable from culture, there is nothing left to convert to. I speak to this in my book, Reachable, 7 Keys to Loving, Leading, and Mentoring the Church of the Next Generations. It's available on Amazon. I'll put the link in the notes there. I'm not trying to promote that book necessarily, but there's good information in there. And it is 7 keys. Everything that I'm talking about in this podcast, everything that I shouldn't say everything. I don't talk about the algorithms and things like that in my book. But a lot of the stuff as far as making disciples of the next generation, I lay out in that book. And I talk about how the first key to making disciples of the next generation is presence. And what I mean by that is they want personal touch. I've told you guys several times now, I picked up a little job in the process of planting this church, the refinery. I picked up a job locally to try to get to know the people. I wanted to get to know the community, and that's working. But what I didn't expect was an inside look at Gen Z. And they're hungry, and many are lost. And I don't mean lost as in not saved. That may be true. But when I say lost, I mean they're searching. They're trying to figure out. They're trying to find their center. They're trying to find out who they are and their identity. And many are still experimenting. And what I've done, and again, I'm not trying to place myself at the center because I didn't intend for this to happen. This was a God thing. But by taking this job and trying to get to know the community, God has placed me in the center of a ton of Gen Z kids. And I'm getting to know them, but I'm present. And that is that first key to reaching that next generation is you've got to be present. You can't do it from afar because you can only minister to them. You can only have conversations with them and get permission to form them and understand you're going to need their permission. They don't need a marketing pitch. They're looking for something real. We've already talked about that. But you've got to be present with them. You can't do it from afar and you can't lecture them. But inside of a relationship, you listen to them and you'll be shocked at the number that will come to you for advice. That's happening where I'm working right now. So I want to go back to when you become indistinguishable from the culture, there's nothing to convert to. That sentence should sober every planter. If Gen Z shows up and finds the same noise they fled, they won't stay. And what I mean by that, if our pulpits are with Fox News or even CNN or MSNBC, they're not going to listen to that. They don't need a Christian identity that looks like a Republican or a Democrat or a communist or a socialist or a conservative or anything like that. They're looking for Jesus. Throw those labels out the window. If you don't, they will not stay. I don't talk agendas. When these kids come to me and are talking to me, the first thing I do is listen. That's it. And oftentimes the conversation ends at listening. But later we come back to it after I've had time to pray about it and think about it. Sometimes I give advice on the spot. I always bring Jesus into the center of it. I always let them know that my perspective is coming from a Christ-centered perspective. But I'll come back to them. Why and how do I do that? Because I've got a relationship with them. And that's what I mean, that the discipleship for Gen Z is organic. It's not a program. So if you don't, when they show up, if they find that same noise, I won't repeat that. If they find the same noise that they fled, they will not stay. Now, let's talk about the multiplication mandate. This moment demands multiplication, not attendance growth. Growth is not the point here. Growth is the language of Baal. You worship the gods and do things in a specific way, and growth happens. And that's the language of empires, truthfully. We hear that you turn on the news and listen to anything that any world leader says, and it's all about growth. The church is about kingdom multiplication, Christ multiplication, not better branding, not viral sermons, multiplication. Jesus never said build large crowds. He said make disciples, not converts, not consumers, disciples who make disciples. 4-generation faith. Paul tells Timothy, what you have heard from me, entrust to faithful people who will be able to teach others also. That's multiplication. Gen Z is wired for this. They evangelize directly. While the church has been wringing their hands, God has been working. Carrie notes pastors post sermon clips. Gen Z believers share one-on-one online and without filters. They don't wait for permission. But Lefevre and McLeod highlight a barrier. Many Gen Z evangelize boldly outside church walls, but feel sidelined inside the church. Churches ask them to run ProPresenter, manage sound, volunteer quietly, instead of equipping them to lead, preach, and multiply. This generation doesn't need control. They need discipleship, spiritual mothers and fathers, holiness with humility. Release their gifts early because and focus on 4-generation reproduction. Again, I talk about this in my book that you want leadership to be 3 deep. Here we're talking 4 deep, and I'm talking leadership in the book, but the implication that I'm talking about, this is really what I'm talking about, is reproduction, reproducing ourselves, because one is not enough to make a difference. Disciple who disciple. Let me repeat that. Disciples who disciple, who disciple, who disciple. All centered on Jesus. So what does this mean for you as a church planter? If you're planting a church right now, hear this clearly. The goal isn't to attract Gen Z. Forget the attractional model. When Christ is the center, he is the attraction. Period. That's it. The goal is to form Gen Z. I told my pastor Sunday afternoon, one of the things I love about her preaching is she does not approach the pulpit with an agenda other than to form the people of God. That is our goal, to form Gen Z. Do not build around your personality. Do not build around hype. Do not build around vibes. Build around Jesus. When revival becomes atmosphere instead of obedience, it burns out. When leaders become brands instead of shepherds, trust erodes. When churches grow without depth, division follows. The church still closes faster than it multiplies in many places. Our own denomination released a report just this in the last month, and we closed many more churches. It's not even closed. The number of churches that we closed compared to the new churches that we planted or revitalized, there's a drastic difference between the two. I can't remember the exact numbers off the top of my head, but I'll place it in the show notes. I'll place that study. And you can see the results from our own denomination. But our denomination is not unique. We're not an outlier. It is consistent across every denomination. Average senior pastor is 58 years old. That's up from 44 in 1992. I'm 59. So I'm planting a church. The reality is yeah, God is not done with me yet. He's made clear that fact. But my goal is that I want to raise up other church planters within my church plant. I did that when I was pastoring in Auburn. We had 5 churches that were planted out of my Eagle Point church. Out of the church I planted was not my church. It was God's church. But out of the church I planted in Auburn, there were 5 other churches planted. And every one of those planters rose up from within that church there. And so that's the goal here as well. I want young people planting churches because as much as Gen Z respects the next generation, Gen X and older generations, they connect with their own. And so I love the fact that Lefevre is a Gen Zer and that he's got such a big platform. Gen Z isn't the future church. They are the present church. So let's talk about a pastoral word. Let's just a pastoral word for you. Let me speak as a chaplain for a moment. I sit with people every day who have everything and feel empty. Gen Z sees that. They're not asking for perfection. They're asking for authenticity. Is Jesus real? Does he transform? Can he hold my anxiety? Can he anchor my identity? Can he be trusted? Those are the questions that Gen Z is asking, and the answer is yes. But only if we keep him at the center, not the algorithm, not the platform, and not the preacher. Jesus. So here's a question I want to leave with you. How will we steward this window God has opened? Will we chase momentum or cultivate multiplication? Will we build followers of churches or disciples of Jesus? Because what we form now will echo through eternity. A few weeks, I will be attending the Exponential Conference in Orlando. I've been blessed with the ability to be able to attend and with other people, other leaders on our district here. I'm excited about that, but I will come back with some amazing insight as well. I'm looking forward to that. I'll hear amazing sermons, attend a lot of just a lot of content there, some more insights that I can place into context for you. So we'll talk about that in April after I get all of that information processed. But if this episode has stirred something, share it with a planter, a pastor, or a young leader in this season. Subscribe. Leave a review. It helps the echoes reach further. Until next time, keep listening. God is still speaking. His echoes never fade. We've got the YouTube up and going. That's still growing. And so you can share that if you want to watch this in person. I still prefer the audio podcast as opposed to the video, but a lot of the Gen Z, my daughter included, they love watching it on the TV. So, anyway, the question I'll leave with you as always is, what is God echoing through your life today? Until next time.
If you enjoyed this, please like and subscribe.
Since we have moved to Nashville, Lisa has gone from what I call her internal oven to saying almost every night, Jeff, I'm cold again. And she's not kidding. Maybe it's the Nashville weather. Maybe her hormones are finally regulating again. But the moment the Cozy Earth double bubble cuddle blanket arrived, say that 3 times fast, all that changed. Every evening that she and Hayden are home, they curl up under that blanket in front of the fireplace with the Christmas lights glowing. Sometimes they're doing devotions. Other times they're watching a show or just enjoying time as family. But I'll be honest, when Lisa calls something her go-to for warmth and comfort, that means something. Number one, I'm not used to her trying to get warm. She's normally sweating, which is why she likes the Cozy Earth pajamas as well. But Cozy Earth products, they have the viscose, crafted with viscose from bamboo, designed to create a calm Elevated Sanctuary at home. Their bedding keeps you at the right temperature. Their fabric is incredibly soft. Their products are just built with a 10-year warranty and 100-night sleep trial. So if you're looking for the perfect Christmas gift this Christmas, something that wraps the people you love a real comfort, their bamboo sheet is set as an easy win. Their double bubble blanket will keep you warm and snugly in front of the fire, or even if you don't have a fire. But go to CozyEarth.com and use the code ECHOES for an exclusive discount, 40% off. Again, that's discount only for Echoes Through Eternity listeners. And if you get a post-purchase survey, just say you heard about Cozy Earth from this podcast. It helps keep bringing partners like this to you. Again, Cozy Earth wraps the ones you love in luxury.